Hi, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I just want to take a minute and I'm going to have a little discussion. And what's triggered this discussion is a video that I seen earlier today that Stoney Ridge Farmer put out. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to post a link to this in the description down below to this video. It's a very good video, uh, and like he normally does. He almost always has a really great video. For those of you who haven't seen his channel. But he brought up an interesting question, and that is, do we really own anything? And this is something I've often thought about because as we have our properties, and we pay for it and stuff, but then we you think about we got to have permits to put anything up on them, to do any type of construction with them. You got to pay a yearly tax, which is honestly pretty much a rent that you pay or a lease agreement that you pay to the government for right to use what you already paid for. And we do all this stuff, and it to me, and I'm going to go down kind of a different road than what he was talking about. But it really becomes like it feels like we're a slave to the government. And I try not to get on political talk too much on this channel, and I'm going to try to keep the political aside because I'm just going to flat out tell you guys, there's no one politician that's going to bring us out of this mess. There's not. Uh, and I'm not going to get into this argument with people where this guy's better than the other guy or whatever. It's not even an election year, and people are still fighting over the elections. It's ridiculous. But the thing about it is, we have become a society where we're such a dependent on the government because we can't. The government takes so much of us that we can't make a living anymore. And if you think about, we 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 get our paychecks. What happens to our paychecks? Our paychecks get taxed, and it gets taxed by several different places. It gets taxed by Fed, gets taxed by the state. Some small municipalities charge taxes to work in their municipalities, and that's not talking about the social aspect of what comes out of your check for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff. We're not even going to go down that road yet. We're just talking about the actual tax part. All right. Now you take that money, you go to the store. What happens when you go to the store? You pay tax again. On using money that was already taxed to start with when you buy other goods. That stuff gets taxed. So, and usually that's to a state government. Unless you're buying fuel, then you get both state and uh, federal involved with that. So that's more of your money that's getting taxed again. All right. Uh, you buy your property, you got to pay yearly property tax, or it's pretty much a lease agreement to the government for allowing you to live and operate on a property that you paid for. But even though you paid for it, you know what? Now you got to pay that tax on that every year. If you want to build something, guess what? You got to buy a building permit, which is a tax on the building that you're putting up. That's going to raise your taxes on the property after it gets constructed. All right. So you're getting taxed before you can get taxed again even higher. All right. And it gets to the point where it makes it hard for people to make a living, especially a farmer. Uh, I've said before, farmers, they don't get back what they just. Most farmers actually end up paying to work pretty much because it is very hard to actually make a profit on a farm. All right, guys. Sorry, I had to move to a little more quiet location here, but so I was talking about the American farmer, how hard it is on him. Um, after after the farmer buys his property, puts up his infrastructure, his barns, his fences, um, watering systems, silos, whatever it is that he needs, depending on the type of farming he's doing, whether it's agricultural uh, or some type of meat production, dairy, whatever it is he's doing, puts all that money into it. He is never, think about this, guys. The amount of money he puts into it, he will never get that back in his lifetime, especially if you're starting from scratch. Now, some of these people that are getting the farms, father's son, sometimes they can make a go of it if they're careful and very, what's the word, frugal, shall we say. Um, sometimes they can get lucky with it, but somebody starting off from scratch, it's almost impossible to do. And Stoney Ridge was kind of making a point on that, where by the time you buy everything and everything sells, you'll never get that money back in your lifetime. Now your family might years down the road, but you know, I don't know. I just feel like the farms is one thing in America that we should be trying to protect. I tell you, there's nothing that makes me more sad, honestly. That's, well, for the most part, nothing really makes me sadder than when I see farm properties, let's say, farm property vanish and you start seeing subdivisions and stuff put up. And I know we need room for people, but at the same time, we need to make rooms. We need to make sure that we're not having to depend on other countries and stuff for our food coming here. Um, you know, in America, we got a pretty good system as far as being able to trust the food that we eat that comes from here for the most part. Now, there's some sketchy situations I wouldn't want to eat from. Definitely don't want to eat none of that lab grown stuff. I'd have to be starving before I ate that stuff. But we need to be able to be more self-contained, or not self-contained, but um, be able to handle ourselves, eat self-sufficient. Is what I'm trying to say. We need to be able to be more self-sufficient in the U.S. than what we are, and quit depending so much on other foreign places for our products. Now I know there's some places that some things we gotta have. I mean, there's some things you can't produce in America. I think silk's one of them. A few other little things that people might want, or might not necessarily need, but they want. Will have to come from other places. I understand that, but we got the resources and stuff here to keep this country going strong, to keep it going the way it needs to go. And we need to find some sort of middle ground to where we're not taxed so much that it makes it almost impossible to get anything out the door. And, you know, it feels like I just don't know where the win scenario is, because it feels like the more we grow, the worse things get. And it seems like, especially for the farmer, it's gotten worse. And, you know, if you talk to most farmers are one of two things. Either they're retired and they're farming because, it's something for them to keep their time occupied with, or they're working another job that's paying to keep that farm going, you know, um, which causes them even more work. And and that gets to the point where that even gets stressful, guys. When people have to do that, and we need to, I don't want to see food prices go up more than what they have. I mean, you go through the stores and stuff, you see prices has gone way, 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 way up. There's no joke. We can't deny that. And we know when you pay the farmer more, prices going to go up other places else. But at the same time, he needs to be able to make a living too. And if he can't make a living and more farms start selling out, where are we going to be at 10 years from now in this country? Where are we going to be at? Where are we going to be sourcing our food from? We need to think about this. Yeah, the people who build cars are important. Yes, the people who um, mine resources that keeps our country going. Yes, they're important. Everybody's important. Everybody has an equal part in making everything run good. But if we can't protect where our food comes from, man, you talk about being able to be owned by any country on the planet. When we start having to rely on other countries for food, I ain't talking about relying on them for steel. I ain't talking about relying on them for um, other imports or whatever. But food, people have to eat. And it's a scary thought. All I'm saying is, as America, I think we need to find a way to protect more of our farms right here in America. So, just a little food for thought. Until next time, you guys take it easy, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.